Oh, hi friends. Do you find it difficult to get the highest scoring players into your starting lineup week in and week out? Are you finding that your bench players are outscoring your starters on a regular basis? This is a condition known as lineup impotence, otherwise known as electile dysfunction. You may be choosing the wrong players every week when you're setting your lineup. This is a condition that many people struggle with, so I would not be alarmed. The good news is, we're offering help. At Bad Fantasy Football, if you tune in Sunday mornings and Tuesday evenings, we will answer any questions live via YouTube chat when we're streaming, or we will respond to any comments on our page that might help you put a stronger lineup out there and make you the hardest team to face in your league.
Yo, what's up, guys? We got another stream here for you. We're going to touch base on a few of the updates that we've seen since our last stream and hopefully help you guys get some lineup set. I'm hoping we get some people in here talking in chat, maybe give us some stuff to bounce off of or a little bit of advice that maybe we can offer. But we definitely have a few things to touch on. What you got for us, Josh?
Well, I kind of want to lead with the San Francisco backfield because I think that's going to be on a lot of people's minds. And I know it's something we definitely want to talk about today. So there was a report that came out from Ian Rappaport just recently within the last hour that said that Elijah Mitchell indeed will, quote, carry the load in week 2. Rappaport also noted that Jermichael Hasty and Trey Sermon will see the field, but this is from NBC Sports Edge, but his strong wording on Mitchell's role points towards a hefty workload for the 6th-round rookie this week. So I think that's kind of what we already thought was going to happen anyway, but with Trey Sermon being activated, like none of us know for sure what's going to happen here, but we would make the assumption that Elijah Mitchell will be the one to get the bulk of the work, especially considering that Trey Sermon was not even freaking active last week, right? So I would expect to see him get the bulk, but at the same time, it's not going to surprise me if Jermichael Hasty ends up getting 10 freaking touches, and who knows, maybe he ends up himself being the lead back because Shanahan is bit of a douchebag when it comes to fantasy football, and he just likes to play mind games. So that's a backfield I want to pay a lot of attention to, but you're definitely starting Mitchell this week, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people weren't really, I don't know, I at least understood that people didn't really know what to think about Trey Sermon being a healthy scratch last week, but as expected, he was activated. It's somebody that I think they haven't really moved their needle on where they're at with Trey Sermon, and this is just another thing to support that. So he is going to be active. We'll see what happens there. Personally, I do think that with as murky as this situation is, I think it's going to get more murky the further into the season we get. Like, Jeff Wilson Jr. looked pretty good last year, and he's supposed to come back around mid-season. So, like, that's still a ways out, especially for fantasy terms. But, like, if you have any hesitation or you don't know how to feel about it, like, I'm just saying, like, try to get a piece of the backfield because I'm still staying by the fact that, like, there's going to be value there. Like, somebody's going to provide a lot of fantasy production. But maybe try to consider this maybe a shorter-term solution because it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I think so too. What you're really hoping for if you have Mitchell or if you have Trey Sermon, you're just maybe you have both, and then you can you don't care which way it goes, and you're just wanting one of them to show enough on the field where they warrant like there's no way that they can then not give them the workload, right?
Yeah.
You just want one of those guys to show out enough to where you can go, okay, at least this guy's going to get 12 to 15 touches a game. But like you said, it could definitely get worse before it gets better. We might not have any clarity until we're a month into the season or something like that.
I mean,
But you do want a piece of that backfield. There's no doubt.
Yeah, you for sure want a piece of that backfield, but you're just wishing it was a little more clear cut. I have Jeff Wilson on my watch list, but the thing is like, if Mitchell or Sermon look good, or both of them, like, it's just going to be a cluster.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. All right, let's get to this next backfield real quick. The Ravens. Another kind of a very weird situation. So in week 1, Tyson Williams, I don't know what your opinion is or was of that situation when you were watching him play last week, but I thought Tyson Williams looked good overall. There was some people talking about the reason why he didn't play much in the second half being like a pass blocking situation, which might be true. I don't know how much truth there is to that. There was also issues with the read option with him and the quarterback there, Lamar Jackson. That there was that fumble that happened. So I don't know if that's maybe what it was too. But either way, I thought Williams showed more than Latavius Murray did when he was out there. But that doesn't change the fact that Latavius Murray was out there playing, had like 10 carries, scored a touchdown, short yardage goal touchdown himself. Now Devonta Freeman's active. Like, God, dude, this is another mess of a situation. If you have Tyson, okay, if you have Devonta Freeman, you're definitely not playing him. Doesn't mean he won't get some carries, but there's just no way you can play him with any sort of confidence. If you have Tyson Williams and you have Latavius Murray, are these guys just like desperation plays only? Are you okay with playing Tyson Williams in your RB2 spot or flex because of what you've seen? Are you okay with playing Murray because you think he's going to get short yardage goal work? Like, where's your mind on these guys?
Well, I'm thinking Tyson Williams is the best bet right now to produce regularly out of that backfield. I think Latavius Murray is somebody that would need some volume to be a true difference maker in fantasy football. He was in shape, and I understand he's also probably learning a playbook in a new scheme, so that's a little bit different for him. But what I saw out of Williams was interesting for fantasy and football purposes. It looked like he was finding space where there wasn't maybe much there. It looked like he was actually making a little more out of what he had in front of him at times, and I think that bodes well for his long-term perspective.
Yeah.
The activation of Devonta Freeman means more to me for Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was added to that practice squad before Freeman was, and they chose to activate Freeman first. So for me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that the addition of Freeman to the active roster is just very bad news for Le'Veon Bell. I don't think it means much for Williams or Murray right now. Definitely worth monitoring. They might want to try to get him involved here and there, but for me, the only thing I'm taking away today from the Freeman activation is like Bell's out.
Bell's out, and almost wondering if you're holding on to him, if you couldn't just drop him. It just seems like a weird. I don't know. Like Devonta Freeman gets activated before him. I don't know, bro. I don't know what's going on over there.
It's not good. It's not good.
I know. So, I mean, hell, if we're on the backfields, let's talk about another fun one. This one's a little more clear, though. We have the Sony Michelle and Daryl Henderson situation with the Rams. So McVay was asked about Sony Michelle for his week 2 role, and his quote was, I have it right here in front of me, so let me get it. So for Sony Michelle, he says, you have confidence that you can utilize him if need be, but Daryl Henderson, I thought, did a great job. He says, he expanded on that further. He says, you do want to be able to say, hey, if you're able to sustain drives, to be able to get some things off, could you expect to see Sony? That's a possibility. But Daryl's a guy that's done a really nice job, and I was really pleased with how he got stronger as the game went on. So how do you read that? To me, I read it as what I think we already expected when they signed Sony Michelle was that Daryl Henderson is the guy. That Sony Michelle, they may view as someone who just comes in to give Daryl Henderson a breather. Maybe he ends up being the back that if the Rams are up big in a game, maybe he comes out there and sees the field more and is just sort of running the clock, getting short yardage work, that type of thing. But that they are committed to Daryl Henderson as their running back. The only thing you worry about here with Daryl Henderson, with his injury history, is that he's not getting so much work that he wears down too quickly this season. And I know that they've had concern about that too, and that's why they brought Sony Michelle in. So I still feel like you're going to see Sony a little bit more and a little bit more. But I just think you can take this as a Daryl Henderson owner you can feel good about this because I don't think there's any concern for worrying about like his workload being stripped. I guess that's sort of all I'm reading from that.
Well, I agree with the assessment. But last stream, I think it was, like you had mentioned, and I like also agree with, let's not forget that like Sean McVay's full of shit. Like there are some guys we like Kyle Shanahan same way, right?
Yeah,
so like
for sure.
Sean McVay says things and they don't happen, and that is a regular thing. So one week he's saying like he doesn't want to overuse Daryl Henderson because like Daryl Henderson might have some troubles with that, and then this week he's saying like in meaningful, like for meaningful touches, Daryl Henderson's our guy, and
Hmm.
like both can't be true, right? So I do think it's a good sign for Henderson, even if it's just something that's crossed McVay's mind. I think that you feel a lot better about it. I agree with all of that. I don't know how you have concerns about Daryl Henderson being like the dude and also not give Sony Michelle touches like when the game's still on the line. So like yeah, I think Michelle probably does get more of the meaningless touches when they're available, and that team could have a lot of those to offer, depending on the matchup each week. But um the fact that McVay said it means that I'm like taking it with a grain of salt, but also yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely a good reassuring statement for Daryl Henderson. I also agree that I think he's gonna have a hard time handling a massive workload. So you do want Michelle to be involved. I think that that's still going to happen, even if McVay is kind of alluding towards that not necessarily being the case. So I think everything's okay. I think at the very least you just take from that like in the back of McVay's mind somewhere, he wants Daryl Henderson to be productive.
He does. Yeah. You said pretty much all of it there that I didn't, but I agree with all of that. Like McVay's hard to trust just as much as Shanahan is. That's a fact. For me, it's almost just what I feel of the players at where they're at currently. I just think Daryl Henderson is a much better player than Sony Michelle is right now. Like maybe Sony Michelle, his first year or two with, um, man, I'm just
New
dropping on these
England?
names today with the Patriots. They, he was very productive there at times, especially during the playoffs. But I just don't even know if he's that same guy right now. I really don't. But I do think that he has to be involved, and he will be involved. And to what extent, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be enough to matter if you're Daryl Henderson owner. I have him in a league, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Michelle a little bit more. Like I kind of want Henderson to stay around that 15 to 17 touch range, and then hopefully he's productive in that. But what I don't want is for McVay to end up committing to him like completely full on for a couple weeks, and then the dude's banged up, and now you got a Sony Michelle running doing shit for anybody. He's not going to
Well,
do
and
anything.
ideally for a guy like Henderson too, you'd probably want like 3 to 5 targets, during the game, which I know there are a lot of places to, distribute your targets in that offense. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting like 12 to 15 carries and 3 to 5 targets in the game, that seems like a pretty sweet spot for Henderson. Maybe a little more open space.
It would be, to touch on that real quick. Did he even have a target in that first game?
I don't think so, and I think it's just a tough. I guess I'm more thinking like comparing him to Michelle, and then also knowing that like there were some targets to be had with Stafford the last couple years. Like it's more optimism, but I'm like hoping that that's a thing if I'm a Henderson owner.
I know. It's got me wondering if because of Stafford and his play, I just don't know if I don't know if as many of those dump offs and things like that are going to be there. Not if he's throwing bombs to Van Jefferson. you
True,
know.
and game flow is probably not going to allow it too often either.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's a good sign for Henderson. I think it's definitely something that makes you feel better because when you drafted him, you weren't quite sure. You're like, okay, well, this is a dude that's shown some, flashes. He's had some good games, but also like you said, it's like where is that sweet spot for him as far as workload and durability
Mm-hmm.
goes,
Yeah. And is McVay going to figure that out and do that?
right? Well, they've had issues with it. I mean, they've run through some guys that, I mean, let's just say that Rams running back is a productive and volatile situation. Bad
It
things
is.
seem to happen, and it's just sad. The
True.
so the coaches we've mentioned are kind of interesting, and the backfields that we've mentioned are interesting too. For um the teams we've mentioned are interesting for some wideouts too. So like we started with the Niners backfield, but Brandon Ayuk last week, like
Mm.
Debo Samuel went off, and Brandon
Mm-hmm.
Ayuk didn't do anything, and then there was some news that maybe he was in the doghouse, and now here comes Kyle Shanahan, also full of shit, and he says, well, he doesn't say, but he alludes to the fact that Brandon Ayuk might get his starting job back.
Yeah.
So I didn't think Ayuk looked great in the preseason, and then with bad news coming out in week one, like he had a couple drops that I thought he should have had, and then in week one you got this too, like Brandon Ayuk's scaring me a little bit right now, but the fact that they're already talking about him potentially getting his starting job back a week later is me thinking more that it's a motivation issue and that the coaches are doing a non-convincing way of trying to like light a fire under him. Like, hey, you can't do that. You might lose your job. Really, we want you to be our guy.
I feel the same way about that, and honestly, that's exactly how I felt about the running back situation there too with Trey Sermon. It felt sort of like with both of them, it felt like hey, look, just because you're with Sermon's case, we are a higher profile rookie that we drafted with Brandon Ayuk. He was a guy that popped last year as a rookie. It's almost like they're saying, look, you're not just guaranteed this. You still have to work for it. So it's almost some sort of weird motivational thing. But I do agree with Ayuk in preseason. He had a couple drops that just should not have happened, and not something I really felt like he showed last year either. Then there was all this good shit coming out of their camp about Trent Sherfield, this other wide receiver that they drafted, and he was the guy that was out there splitting work with Ayuk running. I think he might even ran more routes, played more than Ayuk did this past week.
Mohamed
And then
Sanu has had a few good looks sprinkled in too. Like not a
Did he?
lot, but like I've noticed that he's been involved a little bit too.
Yeah. So bad situation over there right now. If you have Brandon Ayuk, you're not playing him this week. I just don't know how you could unless you're incredibly desperate. But you're also not. If I have him, I'm not like panic selling him either. I'm not going to just take any offer that comes to me. I agree it doesn't feel good right now, but this could also be something that we look back on a month from now and just realize that we way overreacted on it. If it is a motivational thing or whatever the case may be, maybe it just was the hamstring. I mean, when Shanahan was asked about it during this week, he said a lot about it at different times, but he did say that Ayuk would have had his spot back completely if not for the hamstring injury. I don't know, because I also saw him a couple days before saying that. It's not verbatim because I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was asked about Ayuk not playing. And he said something like, if he wants to be on the field, at all times, then he's got to be a lot better than the guys around him or the guys ahead of him right now or something like that. So he's giving mixed signals about it. And, watch what happens this week. Brandon Ayuk's going to go out there and have like 95% of the snaps, and then it's nothing, and then everybody goes back to feeling good about him. But for right now, you can't play him. And I don't think Sherfield's a guy that you want to go add either. I just think these guys are sort of a wash right now until we see what happens. But if you're an Ayuk owner, you're just holding him.
Yeah, I mean, I went like no receiver draft strategy in that 14-team league, so like he will be in my lineup this week.
Right.
But
right.
he also
Yeah, deep league like that.
He also like he put together like a good 5-6 weeks to end the season. So that's why this whole thing is catching me off guard. Like I saw the drops in the preseason and I was like, no way that this is a big deal because like he did finish strong last year. He's somebody like you said that they put some draft stock into. Like he had a very prominent role in the offense last year and then a couple drops and a hamstring injury and it's like, well, now we've totally flipped the switch on this guy. I think he comes back around at some point. Like you said, it could be this week.
I do too.
But like, if you can afford to, you're waiting and seeing for sure. And you're not going to get the value out of him if you're trying to trade him. So like, sit tight on him. Wait for him to bounce back. If you still want to get away from him, let him have a good game or two. I think it's going to happen. And then get what you can for him in a trade if you're all the way out on him still. We do have a chat 100%. Here. Ned Gabay says Gordon or Gaskin PPR, and then this might
pick
be part
3.
of the next thing. Pick 3: Debo, Deontay, Cooks, Cooper, and Godwin.
Debo, Deontay, Cooks, Cooper, and Jesus, bro, you got some good options there.
Right?
Can you play them all? If it's in PPR, so what is this Gordon or Gaskin PPR and then pick 3? I'm a little confused. It must be like pick one of those running backs and then pick 3 of these wide receivers.
I think
probably
so.
how I'm reading that.
Yeah.
Do you wanna start with this? Or you want me to go?
No, yeah, go for it.
So I don't know how you don't play Debo after that first week and like us just talking about the murkiness of those other San Fran wide receivers. Just seems like Debo is the only one that's going to be guaranteed to get some work, get some volume. And also, like, they always want to keep him involved. One running back and 3 wide receivers. Yeah. They always want to keep Debo involved. He kind of is he is their target guy anyway. So I like him. I don't know how you don't play. So Cooper here. Are we talking Cooper Kupp? Or are we talking Amari Cooper? Either way, you probably have to play that guy, right? And then you probably have to play Godwin too. I'm a big fan of Deontay Johnson, and actually I happen to be one of the few you'll find that is a big fan of Brandon Cooks too. But if I'm staring at those 3 receivers, those are the 3 guys I'm playing this week. With the running back's more difficult. The more difficult decision to make because I don't love what's going on with Miami's backfield right now. Amari. Yeah, you got to play Amari, man. You got to play Amari, you got to play Godwin, and then between those other 3 is where it gets more tough to me, but I like Debo. Where you at with the receivers first, Dub?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Amari. Yeah, Amari's a must start. Godwin, I'm a little sketch on, but the matchup offsets that for me. So I mean, they're playing
Yeah.
the Falcons at home. So yeah, I mean,
It's a great matchup.
I think to some extent there's a little bit of hesitation as far as the mouths to feed there. Mike Evans had a he had
Yeah.
a subpar game last week too, so I think they're going to focus on him when they can. This is probably a Mike Evans game, but Godwin has that. He just has that. Any game he could just blow up, and I like it. Debo showed out. Ayuk is kind of on the hot seat right now, like we just talked about. So I agree with those. I also don't really like the matchup that Cooks might be facing this week. So they're playing the Browns. Yeah, and
Yeah,
on
they
the
are.
road too. So like I'm probably
Right.
out on um I'm probably out on Cooks this week, even though I know he had a good game, and I think he's relatively matchup proof because he runs all the routes and he's a quicker kind of rack kind of a guy. But you just have a lot of good options, man. It's a tough decision. Deontay gets the targets too. They're at home against the Raiders, but I think the Raiders defense has been improved under the radar.
Yeah.
So I mean, just looking
What
at those on the surface and considering matchup a little bit, yeah, I think I'm going. Amari, Godwin, and Debo.
Yeah. It's funny because just a week ago when drafts were happening, Debo was going so late in drafts and Deontay Johnson was what was he around like a 5th round pick or something like that. And then here we are in the very following week, and I know it's going to feel really weird to sit Deontay Johnson, and you don't have to. I mean, it's full PPR. He is going to get his targets. The issue I have over there is they have a bunch of guys too, and now they have Najee Harris as well. And the problem I have with Deontay Johnson, I think he's a little soft. I think my man's is a little soft. I like him a lot, but I said this to you before the season started. One of my concerns with him is how often he was hurt during games last year. In that first freaking week, I thought the dude tore an ACL. Did you see him on the field? He like had his head down and he was like banging on the field. Looked like the dude had a year-ending injury, and then he was out there like a series or 2 later and back to normal. I'm like, what the hell's going on with this guy? The running backs, man, we gotta figure that one out real quick because that is a tough one. So you've got what are the matchups there? I'm trying to pull them up real quick. Can't think of them off the top of my head.
Well,
The
we've
Dolphins are
got
playing the Bills.
yeah,
The
and
Dolphins are
then
playing the Bills.
you've got the sorry, you've got the Broncos. My brain's not working either. The Broncos are playing the Jags in Jacksonville. I think Melvin Gordon's the play, but I know that
I think so too.
draft status is a totally different thing that's still on our minds because it's week 2. Melvin Gordon is somebody that I think we both agree was going a little later than he probably should have been. I know that you got
Yes.
Javonte that's in the mix too, Javonte Williams. So like people didn't really know how that was going to play out. Melvin Gordon went a little later and was under the radar last year too, but he finished like RB 12, I think, in a half a PPR league. So like, dude's solid. And it's a good matchup. I mean, I think I'm going Melvin Gordon.
I think I would too. And draft capital, just we're throwing that out the window because we're a week removed from it, and that's how fantasy football works. But at the same time, like Dub said, we both felt like Melvin Gordon was going too late anyway in the beginning, and I felt like Gaskin was. I don't know if he was overvalued, but you weren't getting a deal on him for where he went. I didn't really love what that Miami situation might look like this year, and the first week didn't make me feel any better about it. So I would go Melvin Gordon as well.
Bills defense is probably a bigger factor in that too, even if you're kind of on the fence still. Um, I also think that Jacksonville still has some speed on their defense. I know that Melvin Gordon got a good chunk of his production on one carry. He had a big run up the middle, but yeah, I think it's Melvin Gordon. I think game script could benefit the Broncos too, which isn't going to happen all that often for them, but
Yeah.
I think that could also provide a few extra carries.
Yeah, based off what we saw last week and then the matchups this week. That's where I would go with it for sure.
Yes, sir. So we're running Gordon over Gaskins, and we're running Amari, Godwin, and Debo.
Where were we at? What were we talking about? I forgot.
We were thanks for the comments, Ned. We appreciate that. That's definitely something we want to be a part of this stream. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you. We were talking about receivers. We were talking about Ayuk actually right before that, and then the next one that I was going to go to because we touched on the Ravens was Marquise Brown. So like Marquise Brown went incredibly late in drafts. I know like 2 years ago he had some games and we didn't really know what to think, but it looks like he might be involved in some more of the intermediate stuff, at least from week 1, and not like I said a little bit, but that's something that like really wasn't a thing. It kind of felt more like a show me deal when he was running other routes, and now it looks like maybe they're trying to get him involved. I guess all I'm getting at with that is like if he's available or if you could get him for cheap and you need some wide receiver help, there obviously is a lot of upside to be had there. So I don't know. I think he was like borderline on not drafted when we were looking at him. He was like what, 15th, 16th round ADP, maybe, still sitting there in your league. It's just somebody that, and I don't think it's a huge deal, but I think that this early in the year, it's not easy to get your hands on like high upside players. And if you're looking at your roster, like, man, I need a little more juice, maybe it's something worth thinking about.
I heard everything you said except for the player's name in the very beginning. Who were you talking about?
Oh, Marquise Brown. I mean, I just pulled it up. He is owned in 84% of leagues. So, I mean, there's still what? 1 out of 8 leagues he's still available. I just know he was getting drafted really late, so it must be a lot of people wanted to take that chance.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where he was being drafted, but it was at the end of the draft. Somebody that's like, it's probably somebody in a situation where they're just like, I guess I'll take him here. And it might actually, he was involved. He was definitely involved. It's just one of those things where you're kind of feeling like, I hope this isn't a fool me situation like it's always been,
Yeah.
Do you want to get to, if we're on receivers, there's a couple more things I think are worth mentioning. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time here, but Denzel Mims is now inactive. He's listed as inactive for this week, and that's because Jamison Crowder, I assume, is going to be active, and he's going to be on the field. So I wonder, with Mims being inactive, does this mean that we're going to see Crowder and the rookie Elijah Moore out there at the same time? Do you think?
I think it means Crowder's going outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that would be interesting.
I think he's going to be split out wide. I think I know that he was more of a slot guy, but I want to say he spent some time outside last year at times. But I think that's what's happening here. Corey Davis looked good too, so I understand their vote of confidence. My heart hurts a little bit for Denzel Mims. I think that he still has a lot to offer, and that I wanted him to. I thought he was one of the better looking prospects last year. My concern is that he was also one of the older receiving prospects from the early round guys that went in the draft. So his opportunity is not looking great this year, unless obviously like an injury happens or something like that. So I don't know. My heart hurts for Denzel Mims. I kind of hope he like ends up getting traded or something if they're not dressing him.
Shit, he might. They just don't seem to like him over there, huh?
They don't. And I don't know how you hold it against him when you had the situation you did last year. Like, that whole season was a dumpster fire for the Jets. So, like, what you did or didn't see last year, I felt like shouldn't mean anything. I know that he's also had some issues this year, too. So, he had a little injury.
Yeah. And sometimes when stuff like this happens, it's things that we don't know about. Could be something. It could be like a motivational problem that they have with him. It could be something with a playbook. There's all kinds of just assignments, blocking as a receiver. Like, there could be other things than just his play as far as getting open and catching the ball goes that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
When something like this happens. So another receiver situation. Well, it's kind of like getting into some of these injuries.
Well,
we've
that
got
means
Odell
that
Beckham.
Elijah Moore, though. That means Elijah
Mhm.
Moore, if I'm right, or I don't know where you're
Yeah.
at with that, but if Crowder goes to the outside, Elijah Moore stays inside. I think it's just a cop out
Yeah.
because Elijah Moore is like pretty undersized. I don't know that there's a world where he's playing outside at all, but I mean that might mean that Elijah Moore gets to keep the role that he's most comfortable with, which would be a slight bump for him, right?
It would. I mean, if that actually happened, if Crowder was to move to the outside or play a lot more on the outside, all that tells me is that at least Elijah Moore is going to be out there a lot more. Because the concern, like coming into the year, was if Crowder's in the slot, then where does that leave Elijah? Where does that leave Elijah Moore? I want to keep flipping these guys' names like Mitchell and Moore. This shit's too much. But with Moore there, that was like the concern was Crowder. If they're both out on the field a lot, like if Crowder moves to the outside and plays out there some more, then I just feel better about having Moore if I have him. I can't play him this week. I can't really want to play any of those guys this week outside of Corey Davis. It's the Patriots. Don't even love the matchup. I don't love the way the Jets looked last week. So this is just a wait and see situation for me. But yeah, if I see Crowder out there on the outside and I have Elijah Moore, then I'm just happy to see that because that means he's going to be able to fulfill his slot role and be out on the field.
Yeah,
That's
for
really
sure.
where I'm at with it.
And Corey Davis, like this is a game that I think you're going to be looking for. If Elijah Moore's in the slot for most of his snaps and they're playing the Patriots, I think this is a game where you're looking for him to take another step forward. Just based on matchups, like Corey Davis had a game last week. He's going to have a lot tougher time this week in New England. I mean, they have Gilmore and everybody knows that, but they also have J.C. Jackson. I mean, the Patriots have a decent backfield, and I think when you're going up against tougher corners, your more consistent production should be coming out of your slot on the, the shorter routes and the pockets in the zones. So, for me, I think this would be a great opportunity to see some more production or another step up from Moore, just with the tough matchup with the corners.
Right, sure.
And then,
so you want to get into some of these injuries, these ones that are kind of having a bit of a situation for your boy Odell over there.
Yeah, so he was a game time decision last week, and then like 3 days later they ruled him out for week 2 too. Our the ESPN health analyst, who I respect her opinion quite a bit, says she's not worried about it at all, that they're trying to give him some time to come back, and that she took it as it being more of a personal confidence issue for Odell himself.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a list of one guy that I would put in a conversation of not having confidence issues, it would be Odell Beckham Jr. So like that part to me seemed kind of weird. I also thought it was kind of just weird to say, like, to keep him in the mindset that he might play all of last week and then rule him out so early this week without actually explaining it. Like, it could be the case, but I mean, like, this is bad for me. This is bad news for OBJ.
I thought it was implied that he made the decision, that he wasn't yet ready to go out there on the field and play. That's what seemed like it. That's what seemed like it was implied to me. It wasn't like what the team saw. It was Odell saying like, "Look, I just don't feel like I'm quite there yet," which is concerning. It's not concerning because that either means, I mean, it doesn't mean anything good. It just means he doesn't, with the way he thinks he feels right now, that he isn't ready, and that alone is a real problem.
It is. I've mentioned it before, not with him, but with other players, that with a big injury, like some players, I think it's a shrinking group of players with the amount of success that we have in treating those injuries. But some players, the biggest hurdle is like feeling comfortable again, not worrying about getting hurt. Like sometimes that's a mental block for guys where like your first and second thoughts out there are like, don't get hurt, and that it's just not a good way to play football. The league's too fast for that. So like if that's what it is, like take your time. And I think that's really important. It's just like I wish it was more clear, I guess. Why wasn't he saying he wasn't ready last week? It's just
Yeah,
either
well,
way, it's weird. Like the news flipped.
right. Yeah, you don't love it. Don't feel great about it if you're an Odell, if you have Odell, but I don't know. I probably am thinking the way I look at it is if he's just taking the cautious route, like you hope you don't see that when he actually gets on the field. You hope he doesn't look like he's playing like he's a little scared. And I don't mind him taking a little extra time if he feels like he needs it. The last thing you want is him to rush it back. But hopefully it's not just purely a confidence in himself, like what you were talking about. And they were talking about this with Saquon too. About it may not necessarily mean that he's not physically ready. It's more of a mental thing. And I feel like the only way to really get over that is probably just to get on the field more and play. And we saw it with Saquon this last week. He was out on the field a lot more, had that one big run. Maybe he's going to come into week 3 now and feeling himself a little bit,
Well, and
So Odell, it might just take more time.
Well, in player and personnel, either way, wherever it's coming from, matchup had to be a factor too. Like they played the Chiefs last week, they played the Texans this week, so like there's a lot less push from either side to
Yeah.
be like, I need to get out there and help my team. I mean, they hung with the Chiefs; that was a really good game, but like
Hmm.
when you're playing the Texans, who are expected to be one of the worst teams in the league, like
Right.
it's. Yeah, I could see where either party would be like, okay, like if I didn't play last week, I think I'm going to take another one.
Sure. That just means you should feel pretty good about starting Jarvis Landry this week. If we're talking about this week's implications, you should feel pretty good about starting him again. Obviously, you're playing both running backs. And are you starting either one of those tight ends? I'm not, but I'm watching that situation again because we saw Njoku get a little more involved than we were anticipating.
We did, and he put together what was like one of the standard Austin Hooper games, right? He had like
Yeah.
4 catches for 43 yards or something like that. It was like a modest thing, but as a tight end too, maybe he is getting a little more run in the offense, and that'd be a good thing.
Right. Well, let's move on to another injury. Well, actually, it's not an injury, but he's not playing. Will Fuller. I don't know what's up with that. It was what the Dolphins were saying was something about a personal reason, and I, that was it. That's all they gave us. It's a personal reason. He's out this week. Coach was asked, well, when can we anticipate him coming back, or when is he going to be back again? Someone even asked the coach, is he going to be back this season? And the response for every single one of those questions was, we're just taking it one day at a time. He said, we've had multiple meetings, discussions with Will Fuller. It's a personal issue he's dealing with, and we're taking it one day at a time. All right, bro. I don't know what that means, but that means Will Fuller's not playing this week. So you're playing. I think you can play Devontae Parker, and if you really need to, I think you can play Jalen Waddle as well. You were talking about 14-teamer. Hey, guess who's in my lineup in that 14-teamer again today? Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle.
Yep.
I mean, he was
So
one of those rookie receivers that looked good. I still don't have a problem with it. I think that the some of the downside to owning a rookie is that you expect it to get better until it doesn't, right? So like Jalen Waddle comes out, has a nice game, and like I think if you drafted him and you saw that, you're like, man, I think it could get better. Like I think that's just there. But yeah, I mean Fuller not in the picture again. I think for fantasy purposes, you have to function as though you're expecting Fuller to return next week, and then if he doesn't and you have one of these other guys, then that's just even better. But I think that in your mind you have to kind of just keep that perspective that like he could be back any week and he will be involved when he does, decide to play, I
right,
guess.
right. And then in a couple of weeks when he's hurt and he's out for the year, sorry about your luck, people that drafted him. You shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I'm looking through, seeing what else was here. Justin Fields 2-C, some increased snaps. Okay, I don't think that's gonna mean much, but dude, come on, baby, let's make that transition happen.
Well, the
Um,
Dalton got ripped for his ADOT stats last week. His average depth of target, like I think
what was it, like half a yard?
dude, it was
Terrible.
pretty bad. They said that like 3 of his however many attempts he had last week, which is quite a few, went over 10 yards down the field. Like it was really, really safe. So
That's
Fields
terrible.
getting involved, like I don't know. You don't if the coach is saying that before the game, then that to me means that he's probably going to be involved more in the middle of the field because you don't get to control always like how many opportunities your team has in the red zone, which is what we saw last week. So I think that is the coaching staff saying, like, we're going to try him in a few different scenarios. We're going to make it a point to get him out there, and I think that's good. I think that's good news for the Bears offense as a whole.
Hell yeah, it is. I think so anyway. God, I sure hope so. I hope they didn't draft another Trubisky.
Well, Robinson is one of the safer guys, but like if you're looking at Mooney was one of the guys we talked about in the draft at the end of the draft that could be valuable, like you want a quarterback out there that's going to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah, that usually is good for the offense. I just think it's funny because according to Ian Rappaport, what he was saying for the reasons for why the Bears are going to play Fields a little bit more this week, increase snaps, was because their glowing opinion of him in these last couple weeks or whatever, and he's catching on a lot quicker than they thought. I mean, I call a little bit of bullshit because they've been saying that since before preseason, during preseason. I think what really that means is, hey, we gave Dalton a shot last week and we didn't like what we saw, so this might happen a little sooner than we were anticipating. Like, I think that's really all it means.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there was something to be said. Dalton looked worse early in the game. I think he did at least kind of settle in and find the open guy. It was just more like West Coast style, and I don't think that's a good thing for today's league.
Right. It's not that he really did something awful. Like, there's not a lot of plays that stick out of my mind that were just terrible plays by him. There's just nothing there to give you like any sort of spark at the same time. Like nothing there to get you to keep the defense on their heels, you know?
Well, did you see that Marquis Goodwin came out and had some comments about the offense too?
No, I didn't.
Marquis Goodwin, I'm gonna have to just go off of what I remember on this. I don't have it in front of me, but Marquis Goodwin after the game came out and said that Jalen Ramsay is an elite corner who plays very well in small spaces, is how he described it. And he said, we played right into that. So there was a little bit of talk about that too, because this is a player that's new to this team that comes in with a fresh perspective, right? Like he's seen what other teams look like. He knows what other conversations are behind the scenes. So this is him saying like, yeah, I don't know what your guys' game plan was here, but like I'm not really liking what I was seeing, and I feel like we're playing to the strengths of the defense. And a lot of people took that from what I was seeing as a shot at Nagy, and I think it's fair to say so. But like, it's just interesting to me that you have a guy that comes in that probably has low expectations from the outside, but he came from a successful team in San Francisco, and he's saying, you know, why are we throwing all this short yardage stuff when we've got a guy in Jalen Ramsay that defends that stuff really well?
Right. We got a question in chat. Mooney or Corey Davis in PPR? I know my answer. You got yours, Dub?
Because it's PPR, I'm going to just say Corey Davis pretty quick. We were just talking about the down the field stuff and how if Fields is more involved, I think Mooney takes a bump up. But because it's full PPR and I think there's still going to be some volume there, I'm probably leaning Corey Davis, but I hate the matchup. They're playing the Patriots this week, and it scares me. But I think there's some volume there.
I hear you. I'm going to go Corey Davis, too. I can't feel good at all about betting on Mooney until I actually see it on the field. We were just talking about Andy Dalton's play. Like, yeah, they are playing the Bengals, and you like that, but can't feel at all good about playing Mooney right now.
I mean, like, the thing is like, if Fields gets some run or if Dalton is reading his own headlines, like, he might take some shots down the field and Mooney could be that guy. It's just, but with the way it feels right now, and yeah, PPR, I'm going with the safer bet. I'm guessing these aren't your top options on the lineup either, so I'm going to take the points where I can get them. Just hope for the best.
Same.
I mean, Corey Davis had 2 touchdowns last week too, so I think I feel a little better about that. Just knowing that, like, because he's on a new team, right? So like, I didn't know how to feel about him with the Jets, but having a good game last week makes me feel a lot better about it too.
Well, yeah. If there's one thing you can at least take away for now, it's that Corey Davis is at least the main focus for that team. Like when they're passing the ball, he is Zach Wilson's main target. Zach Wilson's showing already that he definitely looks for him. You can't say that about Mooney yet. you just they have other guys there that they look to get the ball to. I like Mooney as a player, I really do. I think he's got a lot of potential. I just can't play him until I want to be a week late on it. I want to see it first, and then I'll feel better about playing him.
Yeah, definitely hold on to him though. I mean, that's somebody that even if he doesn't produce for another week or two, but maybe we see Fields getting more involved, like you're gonna probably want Mooney when that happens. Yep. But thanks for the comment, Rob. Definitely appreciate that. That's what we're here to do. Kind of sticking with the Bears-Bengals matchup, like Bears defense is an interesting thing, and I think that their corners are kind of trying to find their way still. But do you see the Bengals against a defense like the Bears trying to throw the shit out of the ball? Like we both agree that the Bengals are inclined to do that, but like how many opportunities do you want to give Khalil Mack to hit Joe Burrow? You know what I mean? Like where are you at with that?
I mean, that's fair. I still would expect them to throw the ball, and I think they'll have success throwing the ball against the Bears. That'd just be something I'd put in my game plan. Hey, no problem, Rob. Thank you. That would be something I would want in my game plan, is like maybe Tyler Boyd gets a few more targets this week because he's like that middle of the field, shorter route kind of guy, even though he will go deep sometimes too. There's just so many freaking good weapons they have. The Bengals do. Oh, yeah. I think they can throw the shit out of the ball against the Bears if they want to, honestly. I really do. I think they can. I don't really feel like the Bears are that scary of a matchup right now. I didn't feel that way last year either. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they get their shit together. And, this goes 1-1, the offensive side of the ball and the play there and how long the Bears can sustain a drive matters for the defense and their play when they're on the field all the time. But we just saw Stafford cook against them. And I don't expect any different situation with Burrow, with Higgins, with Jamar Chase, and he looked good last week and got open with Boyd. You still got Mixon who can take dump offs too. They might put up 30 on the Bears today.
Rob's got another one for us. Pick one for PPR flex. James Robinson, AB, Corey Davis, or Jacoby Myers.
PPR flex, James Robinson, AB, Corey Davis, or Jacoby Myers. I know where I immediately want to go. I immediately want to go AB.
I felt the same way.
But we already know the argument in what you worry about with Tampa Bay, and it's who's going to be left out that week, because not everybody can get it done between Evans, Godwin, AB, Gronk. We probably don't really have to worry about the running back so much right now. I still go AB. I definitely don't play James Robinson. He's not in consideration for me. What's his name there, the backup? Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde was very involved week 1, and so I just don't feel that comfortable with that situation right now.
Broncos Jacoby Myers is not bad either. Like that's a matchup for PPR leagues when you're looking at a running back like James Robinson. I'm a lot less interested in.
Yeah. And Jacoby Myers, I've said before that I think he's a little bit underappreciated, but I don't think he's that, not that I think he's that special of a player. I think he's fine. I just think that he is part of the game plan always for them, but I'm not in a position where I would play him over Antonio Brown. And we were just talking about Corey Davis, but for flex. So it was you that asked about Mooney and Davis. I don't know if you're looking to play both, but that lineup, I think we're both going AB.
Yep. Agreed. AB looked really good week 1. They've got a good matchup against the Falcons. Some of that is going to be who's the guy this week. I'll just say that I think Mike Evans is going to be the focus when they can afford to this week to kind of keep their guys fed. But
right.
Yeah, I think AB's the bet. I think I like all of those guys for different reasons, but just in like talking in terms of today, in matchups considered, AB's my guy. Jacoby Myers is interesting too, but like Nelson Aguilar had a good game, and that could be a thing too. So like, we'll see how that plays out. They have a good matchup, but like, is Aguilar going to be the guy that eats this week?
He could be. He had 7 targets, looked pretty good last week too. They've also got both tight ends. Jonnu Smith is active. We got that alert not too long ago. He was kind of banged up during the week, but he's going to be on the field. He was involved.
Did you see that Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry both played like 50+ snaps?
Yeah, man.
Jonnu Smith played like 55 and Henry played 54 or something. Like they were both out there every play.
They were. Yep. And I think they'll use both. Yeah, I think we're right on that one. I think we go AB. Now, if Corey Davis goes out again this week and he ends up getting another touchdown and gets a lot of targets, I think from that point moving forward, we're gonna have to say that you have to start that guy until we see otherwise.
Yeah, that's
with
the nice thing
today.
about the tough matchups is that if a guy plays well in a tough matchup like that, you're really trusting that guy.
For sure.
All
For
right.
sure.
So we're leaning Corey Davis over Mooney, and we're leaning AB for the flex.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Rob.
Which means we're going AB over all of them. Over all of it.
Yeah, with the understanding that if he's just not that guy this week, like we get that, but that we're feeling pretty good about his chances.
Yeah, you know what's funny about them? Just an aside. Like, obviously, you love the matchup today with the Falcons. At the same time, that's almost kind of a problem. At the same time, you expect them to be able to kind of do what they want on the offensive side of the ball, the Bucks, and then that in turn almost makes me worry a little bit about having those guys because I'm like, well, damn, they're all going to be able to get open. So who's going to get the ball?
Right. Well, that's where it almost has me
that.
thinking like it's the guy that got the least the week before, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like Evans, 2 touchdowns today.
Exactly. Like if Gronk comes out and puts up one of those like 2 for 20 games, it's like, all right, like he had a big game last week. He's on, or he's full.
Right. I hear you. That is a little bit of a worry. We got any? There's one we missed for sure.
We got a couple. Yeah, we got a couple here. We had the Eric Fisher activated for the Colts.
Yeah, that's just a nice little bonus, a plus if you've got anybody for the Colts. But obviously, if you've got Jonathan Taylor, I don't think anybody's starting Wentz right now. But you would hope that he's got a little more time, a little more protection now, and that could mean a little bit better things for the receivers. Hopefully, Michael Pittman can get it going a little bit this week. My fantasy team would appreciate that.
The Rams have made it a point to move Ramsey around a little bit, and that has me kind of wondering, just with recent production, recency bias. Zach Pascal's available still in a lot of leagues. I think he bumped up to like 18% ownership I saw last night. So like really surprised that a guy that scored 2 touchdowns is still available in 82% of leagues. Definitely someone that I'm thinking pick up if you need somebody to play. But the counterpoint to that, I guess, is like they've been moving Jalen Ramsay around a lot on the defensive side, and the sideline reporter during the game last week said that he loves it. So,
really?
Is Ramsey going to be shadowing Pascal this week? Because that seems weird to say, but man. Is that what's going to happen?
I don't think so. I think he'd stay on Pittman.
You think?
I would expect, or he just doesn't shadow, and maybe he moves around because he gets bored. But maybe it's not even for a particular reason to shadow somebody.
It's weird.
And it is weird. If we see him on Pascal this week, I'm just gonna find that flat out funny. For one, I'm just gonna find it funny. But then I would really hope, if the Colts move moving the ball at all, I would really hope that Pittman is part of the reason if Ramsey's not on him.
Well, Pittman could be a guy that could be defended with safety help, I think. If you put corner 2 out there and you have safety helping out a little bit on that side for in case something big happens, and then you have Ramsey running the other stuff inside, and it's just like I said, it's just a thought. It's not something that I feel like I know is going to happen, but kind of weird to say out loud.
You know what bet I almost made from that game? Neon Himes was over. I think it was 3.5 catches. And him and Jonathan Taylor was like 2.5, and they both had a lot of catches this past week. And all I was picturing was that Rams defense getting after Wentz and the receiving options not being the best. We might see 20 freaking dump offs from Carson Wentz today to the running backs.
It could be, and I mean, we don't really know exactly what to expect from the Colts, but I think that defense is still good. But Rams have a lot of momentum right now. Colts are still kind of figuring some things out with the new, the changes on the offense and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, they're game flow wise too. There could be a lot of opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to say out loud. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to be keeping an eye on Pascal. But another thing I wanted to touch on is we were talking about the read along comments or the news updates for players, right? And the main fantasy football outlet that most people probably use had an update for Pascal that said he was involved, he's taking advantage of opportunities without T.Y. Hilton, and obviously he's a touchdown threat. Like
Obviously.
the way that it was phrased, I took it as them saying like we knew this was going to be a thing. Nobody was talking about Zach Pascal being a touchdown threat. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. The dude is still available in 82% of leagues, but we're going to just slide this little comment in there underneath the radar that says, like, we knew this was a thing. You know what? Fuck out of here with that. That's just
They
where I'm
definitely
at.
did not know.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned
That's how that
one
shit
earlier,
goes.
and it just bothered. It like irked me when I read that. I'm like, oh really? Like we just knew that
Right.
was a thing.
Yeah, the one I saw just because you mentioned it, and I just want to bitch about it for a minute. Do we just say their name? I mean, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, right? Field Yates said that nobody knew about Tyson Williams before that game happened. Before Tyson had a pretty good game and scored that touchdown, nobody knew about Tyson Williams. And if you said you did, you were either A, lying, or B, you were a Baltimore beat reporter. That's what came out of Field Yates' mouth. Bullshit, sir. Because we sat here and said start him before that game happened. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If you were paying any attention at all to people you should be paying attention to online, there were people that were talking positively about Tyson Williams and how they liked his game a little bit. The people that were familiar with his college film and said, hey, look, at least for this week, he's getting a shot. I think he's going to do pretty well. I bought into that, and it proved to be right. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be the case this week. Freeman's active now, and Latavius Murray's there for another week, and he got 10 carries. So, man, what's going on in my house right now? So we don't know what's going on there exactly. But, like, yeah, just these people drive me nuts sometimes, dude, with this, like, week-to-week bullshit that they say.
Oh, it's so annoying. We got another one here. Rob's asking. He said, I'm hearing the Lions receivers are having injury troubles. Pick up St. Brown, and then Crowder is out again.
Is he out again?
That makes things a little more interesting for me with Corey Davis because Mims didn't dress, and you can't just, I don't think you can change that last minute. So you've essentially got Corey Davis and you've got Elijah Moore are going to be the top 2 guys out there. The problem with that is that I think the Pats are going to be aware of that too. So I'm not really changing where I'm at with that. I think the volume upside is offset by the predictability on the offense. Being a Lions fan, this is what I have to say about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He plays with a fire. He gets into hand fights with the corners. He's a physical player. That hasn't translated to production yet. So for fantasy purposes, that's not somebody that I'm looking to take a chance on over any of the other guys that you've already mentioned. I just don't think he's there yet. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder or an edge, and I like that, but it hasn't turned into production yet. It could, but like the Lions' top receivers last week were T.J. Hockenson, DeAndre Swift, and Jamal Williams. And Williams and Swift each had 8 targets apiece. So, like, I don't think the Lions ever really had plans on using their receivers a lot. Tyrell Williams is out with the concussion protocol, and I understand that, but he didn't get a lot of run last week anyway. Quintez Cephas would be somebody that I'd be more interested in if you're looking at that situation and you just feel like, man, someone's got to do it. But the coaching staff likes St. Brown. He's a very motivated, very passionate player. There's a lot to like about what he brings to the table from a football standpoint. I would just like to see some more production and a bigger stat line before I really commit to that. But I'm always going to encourage guys to go with your gut. So, like, if you're just feeling like that's a thing and that's what needs to happen, like, you just don't see a world where he's not going to have a good game this week, I'm just always going to say go with your gut over anything. If you just have this burning feeling that, like, something's going to happen, do it.
It does appear that Crowder is out in inactive again today. After he was reportedly supposed to play and be active, so that's interesting. Don't really know what's going on there.
Denzel Mims took a bat to his knee.
Maybe that's. But the thing is, that's what's weird though, is he's inactive too.
Oh yeah,
like that was already reported earlier.
Yeah.
Who's they running out there, bro?
That's it. They got Elijah Moore and they got Corey Davis, and against those corners, that bothers me.
Yeah, just with how much focus they might be able to put on Corey.
Yeah.
You still got to play him. But I mean, you don't have to play him if you're in like a 10-team league. You've probably got better options, and you can afford to sit him. But if you're in a little bit of a deeper league, if you're in a 12 or 10 team or 14 team or more, and you've got a flex, like he's probably got to be out in somebody's lineup.
I mean, that's bad enough to hurt the running back some too. Like I've been keeping an eye on Michael Carter, and he got a little more run than I was expecting. I mean, they did like a one third, one third, one third volume share with those running backs, which I think bodes best for Michael Carter. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, if you're
But is he but is he even going to get the opportunities yet?
exactly like if the dude goes out there this week with this last minute news coming out that's affecting their lineup to the point where they didn't even get to dress Mims to to help out with that, like
Right.
then I'm looking at it and I'm taking a lack of production from the running back room with a grain of salt, I guess is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, while we're on this game again for just a minute, I do just want to mention J.J. Taylor, the fourth running back for the Patriots. He was seen on the field earlier, like in pre-warm-up and in the warm-ups or whatever. People were posting a picture of him on the field. And some were wondering what did that mean? Well, he is active today. He's making his season debut. All that really means is, so he wasn't inactive last week. And then we had Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, who also, by the way, saw the field early in that game. He fumbles, and then he had, there was a reported, I didn't see the play, but there was a pass protection that he just completely blew and then didn't see the field again. And then obviously Harris had that fumble late that probably lost the Patriots the game, even though he had a good game, had 20-something carries at 100 yards. So J.J. Taylor might be getting his shot today. I don't know if that's going to mean much. I'd still expect Harris to be a guy. But that also could mean that Ramondre Stevenson's in the doghouse.
And
after being
to
in the
an extent,
preseason,
Harris
dude.
too. I mean,
Yeah, potentially.
they had a week 1 win in the bag essentially, and then that happens. Like that's the difference between what the Niners coaching staff is doing and what the Patriots coaching staff is doing, right? Like you're actually JJ Taylor could play because we actually believe that we're going to roll with someone else because we don't like what you did. Instead of like Ayuk, you're not playing, but we want you to, but we kind of want to punish you, but like don't lose your confidence. And Bill Belichick's like, if
Mm-hmm.
you want to play football, you need to play football.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, there's more clarity in the Patriots backfield, probably. That's
True.
crazy.
It's true.
There's a big running back injury that we haven't talked about, and that's Josh Jacobs not being. I don't think he practiced all week, right? He didn't practice all week, and now so he's out, and you have Kenyon Drake that everybody just assumes was going to be the main guy now, but then there's the report that what's his name?
Peyton
What's the
Barber.
running back over there? Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber is going to now get work today. There's no chance I'm playing him. I just can't play him with any confidence. I would play Kenyon Drake in my flex if I was desperate, but I don't love it either way.
I'm looking at Peyton Barber and I'm thinking if you're okay with rolling the dice on the upside being a stat line similar to what Josh Jacobs did last week, if you're looking at it and you're like, I'm okay with 30, 40 yards and 2 touchdowns as like the best possible outcome, like, okay. Like, I see a world where that could happen. And it's going to depend a lot on what your alternative options are. But, like, that's what I'd be picturing, like, best case scenario for Peyton Barber being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you don't get the touchdowns, it's just a terrible day.
Mm-hmm.
Kenyon Drake's at least going to get some work in the passing game, too. If you're in any sort of half-point PPR, full PPR, like I said, that would be a desperation for me. I would hope I'd have a different option. But if you had Josh Jacobs and then you were sitting on Kenyon Drake and you don't have a third running back, that would make sense, or your flex is pretty rough. I would play him and just hope that he gives me a little bit of a floor. But another tough matchup with the Steelers today.
For sure.
I mean, they played Baltimore in week 1, and that was supposed to be a tough matchup. And for the most part, the running backs kind of struggled. If Jacobs didn't get in the end zone there, that was going to be a rough day for him. The yardage totals were not there.
Oh, yeah.
And for whatever you think of Josh Jacobs, some people seem to not be in his camp. We both tend to believe he's a damn good running back. He's obviously banged up, clearly. But whatever you think of him, you got to think a lot less of Peyton Barber.
Oh, yeah. And
Now watch
yeah,
that dude go out and get 100 yards.
Peyton Barber versus Steelers defense is like, woof.
Yeah, don't want it.
No. Also, because we've taken a knock on the Raiders' offensive line, that could be a bigger issue. Like, if they had enough up front to get through the Steelers' line, like, I mean, the Steelers have some big bodies in the 3 technique. And if you were to get past that with a guy like Peyton Barber, there might be some room for moving some of those smaller defenders out of the way, right? But no, big no on Peyton Barber. Yeah, they called him the starter on one update I saw, but I think that just means like we want him doing the running duty, and
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Pittsburgh
and what John
too.
Gruden says and what he does is another thing too. He's another one of those guys.
True. And if you're playing in Pittsburgh, I see a lot more opportunity for Kenyon Drake today.
Same.
We actually, coincidentally, Rob led us into the Tyrell Williams conversation. I had that wrote down too, just because he was somebody that
okay.
I was like bigger on later on. Definitely somebody that's going to be available, later on anyway. I think when he comes back, it might be somebody worth holding on to. But from what I've seen so far, it's not somebody that I feel like is on anyone else's radar. He's just going to be there until he has a good game. So we already kind of touched on that and what other guys might look like in that receiver core. I mean, as far as my notes go, the last thing I had was just the Thursday night game. We haven't been on since then, and there were a few things that I thought were kind of interesting on that matchup. Were there any other players you wanted to touch on before?
I don't think so. You mean as far as injuries or situations leading into the games today? You mean?
Yeah, I mean, I could find some other stuff, I guess. Like the only other thing that even crosses my mind, a couple things I think. I guess just real quick, like Tyrod Taylor didn't look that bad as a starting quarterback for the Texans. I mean, we did touch on Brandon Cooks a little bit. I think there's a little bit of a bump for some of the other targets from what we saw. I don't think that's something that we're going to like really want to rely on long term until we see more, right? It's only 1 week. But we were talking about Pharaoh Brown, and I think that Pharaoh Brown still should be on people's radar. Nico Collins had a few targets. I thought that was kind of interesting. I know I threw him out there, and he does profile as an ideal outside target. I still don't think that's going to be a thing, but like also just keep an eye on that. So that part was interesting to me that Tyrod Taylor actually looked pretty good without playing football for a while. And the other thing, AJ Green had 6 targets, and kind of the way that I've been talking about Mike Evans this week was like offenses with weapons can choose sometimes where they want to go with the ball, and I think that AJ Green getting 6 targets in week 1 was probably part of that. I might not be headed the same direction that you think I am in this. It's more that if AJ Green got 6 targets last week and didn't do much with them, which was the case, I don't know that it's going to be very good. Sometimes targets can tell you bad things too. Like volume is good, but like there were a couple guys last week that had 10 targets that didn't do much with them, and that's not going to get better. So like I like to look at it the other way sometimes too. It's like, okay, well, AJ Green got 6 targets. They probably wanted him to be involved and have a good game, but like he didn't do much with those. And so that's just
Right.
another indicator for me that like probably not a big deal.
Yeah, totally agreed on that situation. I guess a couple things I'll mention too about today before we move on from that was that the few things that I'm looking at, the Buffalo wide receivers, Emmanuel Sanders was kind of banged up this week, but he's active and he'll be on the field. So I'm watching that what's going on there with the other wide receivers not named Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis specifically. I kind of think we already know what
Cole Beasley.
what Cole Beasley's role is going to be. So I want to see what's going on with Sanders and Gabriel Davis. Sanders was on the field 90-something% of the snaps in week 1, had 8 targets. And so I just want to see if he has another week where he's really involved and ends up turning into another productive week. He's only 20% owned in ESPN leagues. That number should go up next week if that ends up being the case. And then the Saints, there's like several guys there. I want to know what happens with Marquez Gallaudet. I want to know what's going on with Adam Troutman, their tight end, because he had some targets last week as well, and there was like a little bit of hype behind him. It was kind of under the radar, but we should be paying attention to him if we're throwing some tight ends out there. And then Deontay Harris, the other wide receiver for the Saints, caught that long bomb. Those 3 guys, I just want to see their involvement today. I don't expect every week to be a week where Jameis Winston only has to complete 148 yards in passing and be able to score 38 points. I feel like that's an outlier. So expect a lot more passing to have to happen today. And then I want to see what all these guys' involvement is, if any of them are going to be worth picking up this week.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. Emmanuel Sanders' involvement was good, was nice, and I think that he should be involved if I think he should be involved. I expect him to be involved. He had that one like weird drop, but that's just not him. He's been around for so long, like playing at a high level. I know he's getting older, but if he gets another 6 to 8 targets again this week with Gabe Davis out there, and Gabe Davis just gets like the selective shots, then I'm a lot more interested in Emmanuel Sanders.
Same. I'd want to lean more towards the involvement than the one-offs here and there that Gabe Davis might get.
For sure. And I think we both think that Gabe Davis could be emerging too. So like that, yeah, I like that you put that out there. We want to see how they're doing.
Yep. Hines or Drake in full PPR.
Hines is the safer pick, I think, for PPR because he's been doing it longer. But this week, I think it's pretty close, right?
This particular week, it is kind of close, obviously, with Josh Jacobs being out, and but the Raiders are talking about using Peyton Barber as their lead guy. I just don't like the situation as a whole, and I can't stand the matchup. I know that the Rams with the Colts is not the best either, but Hines was pretty involved last week. I just think a little bit more of that offense right now, and I think a little bit more about him as a player than I do Drake. They are pretty close, but I would go Hines. I'm kind of trying to picture touchdown opportunities and all that in mind too, But Hines it's a close one, but full PPR. I think Hines gives you a nice floor. Drake could be involved and give you a floor, but I could also see a world where Drake gets like three targets or something.
Yeah.
I just don't trust John Gruden at all.
Plus, I mean, if we're looking at receiving backs, one thing that I'm considering is going to be linebacker play. And I think a lot more of the Steelers linebackers, than the Rams. I know that the Rams have a good defense. I think that the Colts and the Raiders could both be playing catch up today. But I think even like reports on the Rams for the last couple years have been like they wish that they were getting more out of their linebackers. So definitely for matchup, I think Hines for sure.
You got anybody?
Thanks for the comments,
is this your running back?
We appreciate that.
Ricky, if you're still here, is this your RB2 spot you're trying to figure out, or your flex? If it's your flex, do you have some other options you can throw out there? And while we're waiting on that, Dub, was there anything else really you want to pay attention to? There might be like maybe one other thing, but it's really not something that's super important for me.
Well, we were touching on the Bills a little bit, right? Zach Moss is out.
Is he out again?
I want to say.
Okay.
Here,
I don't know if I've seen the report. Okay. I don't know if I've seen the report yet, but I know I had read like yesterday or the day before that he was gonna probably be playing this week. And if that's the case, then I don't know how you can play Singletary or him with any sort of confidence.
Moss is expected to play. He was considered the healthy scratch last week. So I guess what does that mean then for? We're probably both out, relatively speaking, on Bills running backs.
For now, yeah. I mean, if you have one of them, you're just sitting and waiting. But I don't want to play either one of them right now.
You lean
I had those
Singletary
guys last year
because of the healthy scratch, though, or is that more just the Bills acknowledging that they don't really care who's back there? Like,
I mean, I think that might be the case. Can you play Josh Allen as your running back?
Right.
I would think it would be. If you had to choose one, I'm choosing Singletary just simply based off the fact that Zach Moss was a healthy scratch last week. I mean, that's at least Singletary was out there playing. But I don't want to play one of those guys.
That might just be their best way to say that. Like, it might be their best way of saying, like, we have two guys that we don't mind, but we only plan on using them a little bit. So here it is.
Right. Right. So that was your RB2, yeah. So you're picking one of those guys, Juju and Kirk. Yeah. That's a fun one. You never know what you're going to get with Christian Kirk.
Well, I said it at the end of last stream, and I think it's still true. So Christian Kirk, for the last few years, if you go look at his game logs, right, when he has a good game, they usually come in 2s and 3s. I don't know why, but Christian Kirk is like a 3-game on, 5-game off kind of a receiver. I don't get it. I personally have been really big on Rondale Moore this year. I'm really hesitant to invest in Christian Kirk, but if you're rostering him, you like him to some extent. And here's the real question. Like, if you don't start Christian Kirk after a big game, when will you? So if you're not playing Christian Kirk this week, that might be a roster opportunity for somebody else. Maybe you can go get some upside somewhere else. But if you're big on Christian Kirk, I'm probably running him out there. I think those guys are close enough. I think that Juju is probably the safer pick. But if we're looking at like history and trends, Christian Kirk typically has a couple good games in a row. So, like, it's hard to invest in. I get it, right? Like, we'd rather see larger sample sizes, more consistency. But you have him on your roster for a reason. I'm guessing you like him at least a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, those guys for you might be neck and neck. I do think Christian Kirk does tend to produce in waves, so take that for what it's worth. I think Juju's a safer pick. I think Kirk is probably still has some upside, and I think he's more likely to have another big game this week than maybe if he didn't have a good game last week.
That's
tough.
the right way to put it. That's the right way to put it. Juju, you know for sure, is going to get some targets. He's not going to completely disappear on you. But Kirk's up. He doesn't offer you, we don't believe, the same upside that Kirk would, because Kirk can have another big touchdown catch, and that one, and makes your day alone. Where Juju's just a little bit, his play is not as exciting as Kirk's is, but he is not going to completely disappear on you at the same time.
It's true, and the Vikings corners are weak. Like, they've got Harrison Smith back there to kind of cap the big plays, but like the corners for the Vikings are not something that I'm really afraid of. So that also, I think, makes it closer, in my opinion. So, I mean, if you're looking at I don't encourage guys to do this very often, but if you're looking at the team you're playing against and like they're looking like they're just juiced, then you're probably going Kirk. But if you're looking at your lineup and maybe you feel decent about your matchup this week with the other, with the other team, and then you just need to get points.
You just don't want a dud.
Yeah. Then you have to go Juju.
Yeah. And speaking of those Minnesota, KJ Osborne, remember we had mentioned him this past week after his week 1 game.
Yeah.
He was the third wide receiver of Minnesota, and they played a lot of 3 wide receiver sets.
Yep.
I want to see if they do that again. I want to see if Minnesota goes with 3 wide receiver sets pretty heavy this time again. And if they do, then is KJ Osborne getting another like 7-9 targets? If he's getting that again, the dude's got to be somebody we talk about next week.
Yeah. It's true. Because we talked about how like the Vikings have tried to make that a thing in the past, kind of seemingly under the radar unless you were watching the games. So like if this ends up being another game out of KJ Osborne, like I think that means something. I don't think it's just a fluke.
No. I don't think. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, I would feel a little bit better about it then.
For sure.
Well, what you got? You got anything else?
I mean, not for specific.
Bars in the Tuck.
Huh?
He was here last week. Bars in the Tuck was here for our last stream.
Oh, hell yeah. Welcome
happy
back.
Afternoon and happy week 2. Full PPR, pick 2. CEH against Baltimore. Damien Harris against the Jets. Or Elijah Mitchell against Philly. Or pick 2 of them.
I know where I'm at.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going Harris and Mitchell with confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, like, here's the thing, though.
In my mind, what to say, it's just crazy to me. I'm not laughing at your answer because my initial thought was the same thing, but I'm just laughing because that's insane, isn't it?
I mean, it really is. Here's my thing, though. The reason I feel that way, like Baltimore, I've mentioned this a few times, so it might be annoying, but Baltimore got like run over by Derrick Henry in the playoffs a couple years ago, and they've done everything they can to bolster their run defense since. So, like, I think unless you think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get enough passing volume only to like really put him ahead of those other 2 guys, like I just don't think there's anything to be had on the ground against Baltimore. Like that run defense is like, for me, like number 1. It just scares me. So like there might be a world where, Clyde is getting enough looks in the receiving game to make a difference or kind of keep pace. Because, I mean, obviously he's going to get a few yards on the ground, but I think he'll be extremely limited running. The real question, though, is like, how far into the doghouse might Harris be?
Right. I know. That's what I'm wondering, too, because, of course, you're going to love the matchup with the Jets. I don't want to, like, already start getting into that world where we're trying to project flows of games when we've only seen 1 week. But if we're basing it just off of what we've seen for 1 week, the Jets are still the Jets, a.k.a. not very good. And Damien Harris had so much work. And as long as the Patriots are in tight games, close games, or obviously even if they're up, then you would expect to see a nice heavy dosage of Damien Harris. And
with 2 tight ends out there too?
Right. And I'm just going to have to assume for now that Damien Harris is not in the doghouse. because of how productive he was and because Ramondre Stevenson also had his fumbles. I highly doubt it's going to be a James White and J.J. Taylor day. I wouldn't expect that. I would still expect Damien Harris to get another shot at this. Cross your fingers he doesn't go out there and fumble the ball, because then that dude might be then he might actually be in the doghouse.
Yeah, that's
and
what
you're
we're
gonna be
hoping
left with a
for.
bad day.
Like, probably
Yeah.
green light this week, but like if he fumbles again, we're in real trouble.
Hold on to the ball. Hold on to the ball.
Oh.
With Clyde, so with Edwards-Helaire, they played the Browns last week. He had 14 carries. He had 3 receptions. That was a game that the Chiefs got behind on early, and then they started slinging the ball a little bit more. If they're playing Baltimore, it's a defense that you don't know what you like. I was really surprised that the Raiders were able to put up as many points as they did against them this past week. If the Chiefs can do that, maybe Clyde stays more involved. Maybe there's not a time in the game where he just kind of gets phased out a little bit. Even if he's on the field, he's not the primary focus. If the Chiefs are playing from behind, like, he might catch a couple dump offs here or there, but that's going to be Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then, like, Hardman, here's your one target, and Robinson, here's your one target. I would be a little bit surprised to see the Chiefs get behind on Baltimore like they did with the Browns. And all you really need is a touchdown from anybody to kind of make their fantasy day. And Clyde probably has as good of an opportunity to score a touchdown as any of them. But you can't feel good at all about what you saw from him last week when you take into consideration what you saw from him last year. I've never been the biggest Clyde Edwards-Helaire fan, just as far as his game goes. I don't think he's all that special of a player. Are we actually in a world where we're going to start Damien Harris, but then a dude that nobody knew about up until this past week with Elijah Mitchell?
So here, yeah, I think so. But
I think so too. But
things can change that fast. And like, he is right now like the top option for the Niners backfield. Here's one thing I will say: Fletcher Cox is a good enough defensive tackle to ruin a run game. Like that, the Niners' offensive line is very good, and I'm not taking away from that. But every once in a while, with as bad as Philly's been, like, one thing that they've shown they can do once in a while is stop the run. I'm still thinking Mitchell's my guy, and it's not week in and week out that they're doing it. But every once in a while, Philly steps up to the plate too, and they shut down some run games. I don't know what it is. They're weird like that. I mean, they looked good last week, and I didn't think that they really... I had low expectations for them last week, and they kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I could see that game being a little bit tighter than maybe people are anticipating. I don't know how people are viewing that game. I don't know what the under over is and the in the spread. I haven't looked at that yet. But yeah, I could see a world where Philly's hanging in that game today. With Ian Rappaport putting out earlier that Mitchell is going to get, what was it, like, quote, bulk of the work or majority of the work, something like that. I'm gonna have to take that report, assume that he got that from the right source, even though we're very bad at predicting what Shanahan's going to actually do in games. I'm going to have to take that and play him based off what we saw last week and based off that report, and just cross my fingers that it's true, hope that it's right, and I would play Harrison Mitchell over that. I apologize in advance if we go out here and Mitchell gets 8 carries and JaMychal Hasty ends up being the guy. If that ends up happening, I'm not going to feel confident in any of those running backs until I see multiple games of it being one of those dudes. Whether it's him or Sermon or any of those guys. But yeah, I'd play Mitchell and Harris. That is crazy. That's crazy.
It's gonna feel weird, especially in full PPR. Like, it feels wrong.
It does. It really does. That's the problem with Harris. Like, what do you have? Like 26 carries? The dude doesn't catch any balls. So he had like 20 something carries, had 100 yards, and no catches. So he got you just 10 points, which you're happy with. But a dude that had a very productive day on the ground, that much volume and 100 yards, and he didn't bomb for you, like, it was fine. But that isn't winning you any week. He needs to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
He's got a good opportunity to do that today, I would think. Well, I've touched on everything. So if you got some more stuff, go ahead and spit it out. I'm here.
No, I mean, well, we're getting close to game time now. So just a quick touch on the Thursday night game. I mean, we might as well at least get what we thought we saw out there. I mean, I thought for Washington coming in with their backup quarterback, and a defense that I kind of respected more than most, I think, for the Giants. Like, I think I just took away that I feel so much better about Washington's offense with their backup quarterback than I do with the Giants with Daniel Jones. I think that's weird, but like that was my takeaway from the game. Like, you're probably not thrilled with what Antonio Gibson did, but like Terry McLaurin looked good. They moved the ball. They scored a lot of points with Heineke out there. So I think at the very least you're keeping Terry McLaurin where you had him before. J.D. McKissick is doing what J.D. McKissick was doing last year, so that's also kind of an intriguing option, especially for PPR. But like when you have a healthy, I mean, when you have like the Giants offense, the way that you're with the people you're expecting to see out there, and the lack of production, like there's just I don't see a world where that's getting better, right? Like you've got Kenny Galladay out there who was projected as like what high-end wide receiver 2 in the draft, and he's like throwing a fit on the sidelines, and like his production's not there, but also his mentality is like I'm upset with the situation, and it was 1 week. It's week 1.
He was probably upset with his lack of involvement at times in the game. I was trying to pay attention to him, seeing it, like as much as you can see of them on the screen, on the TV when they're running their routes. I was like looking at all those receivers, trying to pay attention to who looked like they were getting open, who looked like they were getting good releases. Galladay looked like he was Galladay out there, and there was times in the game where he simply wasn't involved. I love Kenny Galladay as a player. I think he's really good, and he was practically off my draft board because I think so little of Daniel Jones. I really don't like him. I don't think you can ever trust anybody that's going to be a target for him to be consistent at all. And I mean, who did he? At times he's feeding Sterling Shepard, and he's done that for 2 weeks in a row. But then the week you go to buying a Sterling Shepard and actually put him on your roster, or if you're in a deeper league and you end up starting him, that's the week where he doesn't do anything. We've seen that throughout his entire career. We also don't have Evan Ingram back yet. And when he does come back, even if that's only for a half because he gets hurt often, he will be involved too. Like even though he didn't have a productive year last year, he got a lot of targets. It just wasn't efficient. It's just a really murky situation. You've got bad quarterback play, and you've got a lot of different people that could get the ball thrown to them. If I have Kenny Galladay, I'm sweating. I don't feel great about it.
And here's why I'm sweating. There was one play that really got to me. So if you're the Giants front office, you're looking at the situation. Kenny Galladay has never been a separation creator. Like he was a 4th-round pick for that reason, I think. But his contested catch rate, his just physicality has always been what has allowed him to be pretty good. And the dude had double-digit touchdowns like, what, last year? 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Him and Marvin Jones both went double-digit touchdowns. Both of those guys are the same guy. They're going to have somebody on them. They're not going to be running away from anybody. But if you give them those one-on-one chances, then you're going to that's what you brought him in to do. I feel like you should have known that that's who he was before he came in. So the play that I saw had it was that Slayton touchdown. Slayton catches the touchdown on the left sideline. Well, on that same play, Kenny Galladay ran the same route on the right side. And so essentially what we're saying is that Daniel Jones had his pick. And Darius Slayton, who he's been with for the last couple of years, who has underperformed in my opinion because I've been big on him the last couple of years and it just hasn't happened. Darius Slayton was his choice on jump ball in the end zone on either corner of the field. You're a quarterback, you drop back, and you have a choice. And both receivers are running the same fade route, and both receivers are one-on-one in the opposite corners of the end zone. You choose Darius Slayton. It worked, but what was that? That is why I'm panicking if I'm Kenny Galladay owner.
I don't know if Daniel Jones has the confidence to want to throw in a tighter coverage or with a receiver that's got a defender right there on him. And when he was throwing to Slayton, when he was throwing to Sterling Shepard, these guys were open. Which how can you complain about that? You can't. But did you see those catches that Galladay made in week 1?
He had to fit that one in on that Slayton touchdown though. Like I mean, he dropped it in nice, but it was like if he had a corner behind him, he still had to drop that over the top, and he did. And like I said,
Well,
it worked.
Galladay was hurt during camp, and there really wasn't any time for him and Daniel Jones to sort of work together. They're learning they're learning on the job right now together.
It's true.
That was probably the reason for the frustration on the sidelines between Galladay and if it was him or if it was play calling. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was mad, so that's not great.
Yeah.
New guy on the team, and he's already out there yelling at people. But they are learning on the job right now, so maybe that can get better. I definitely know Galladay can get it done. I'm sure of that. He just needs to get the right opportunities and be more of a focus of the offense. What I was saying was that week 1, the bulk of his little bit of production he had in week 1 was towards the end of the game when it didn't really matter. But he had 2 catches back to back that were unbelievable, that were really nice. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, okay, like he's still that guy. But it doesn't matter if he's not going to get enough opportunity. The thing is, even if he gets 4 or 5 targets a game, that's just not going to be enough.
It's true. Barkley looked better. It looks like this is just going to be a slow curve. So really, like, we're probably not going to see Saquon Barkley until maybe week 4 with the way this is looking. Week 3 or 4.
80 something, 86, I want to say, % of the snaps he was out there. That's good.
He had a couple good flashes, but he's not going to be him for I think another week or 2.
Let me ask you, that long carry he had, that one long carry where he kicked it to the outside. There was a nice hole there for him. I don't really think he did a whole lot, but he did stiff arm a guy, and then it was him in the open field. Does old Saquon Barkley not score on that play? Like, does he not just not get caught? Because he got ran down from behind.
I mean, is it like
that was? I saw that and I'm like, what's going on there?
Though? Like, it's hard to say. Is it like who he is now, or is it because there's a difference too between like being in shape and being in football shape, right? So like, the problem with a lower body injury is that you don't get to condition. Like if you have a bad hand or arm injury or even a chest injury, like you could hit a treadmill up, you could do something, right? So like, I don't know. What is he still getting like all the way up to that conditioning, or did he get sapped some on that injury?
That's the question.
I'm giving him a couple more weeks. About. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't like that I saw it, but like give him a couple more weeks, and if you're not really seeing that explosiveness, then you're hitting that Zeke Elliott button, and you're saying like we're watching this unfold. I saw what I saw. You can go somewhere else.
Yeah, if it's a keeper league situation, I'm like, please have a big game. Please have a big game. Trade.
At that point, you're probably looking at getting what you can for him. We had one draft where he fell to 9th, which was kind of crazy. It was like shortly after some of the injury news came out, and they weren't sure if he was going to play week 1. But before that, I saw him going as high as number 3 overall. So, like, if you're not liking what you're seeing on the field, you're probably not getting up to 3 overall territory in trade value. But, like, someone we mentioned that would be in the same spot that an owner might not be as thrilled with, like maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you think that Barkley is, like, done, if you're looking at it and you're like, man, that injury he's not the same guy. Like, maybe you're looking at somebody like Edwards-Helaire in a keeper league where he's younger, they're still on a good offense, and, like, you can get some of that value back before it's too late, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, you're probably going to take a hit on, like, top-notch production or upside, right? But, like, if you know it before anyone else does, you have a chance to kind of help yourself, too.
You do. That'd be a tough pill to swallow.
Right?
I don't even, like, 80% of Saquon Barkley might still be better than 100% of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Even for volume, there's something to be said. Like, he's probably going to be able to produce for a while, even if he doesn't have that jump.
Yeah, he can still be good. I just don't know. I'm not gonna, like you said, we're gonna have to wait. The time will tell on that one. But that one carry on the outside was the first one I saw where I was like, because that was, you give him a pass right now. He came back from that serious injury. He's still trying to get involved and get more time. Well, he had more time. He had, like I said, I think it was 86%. It was up in the higher 80s on the field. And then he had that one carry where he was able to break free and get some room, and then got chased down by guys that I don't think he should be getting chased down by.
Yeah.
So that's the first red flag for me so far.
Well,
hopefully we don't see any more.
Exactly. Hopefully he looks a little quicker. a little lighter
Right.
on his feet in the next week or two. Kind of a very minor note, but because he is outside, he isn't likes to get outside and has that home run ability. Like Kenny Galladay's a blocker too. So like if you can
Hmm.
keeping his head in the game, could be like an extra home run or two for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Well, the Giants just need to be better. They need to just stay consistent, and Daniel Jones really specifically needs to just stay consistent with his play, and that will help Saquon a lot. We
Yeah,
just can't have that inconsistent, terrible games and shit like that, because that's when Saquon's numbers are just going to be they're going to be nothing. You're gonna hate what you see out of him week to week if that ends up being the case.
true.
I don't know if
So,
he's yeah, we've said
well,
enough about him.
yeah, the takeaways are J.D. McKissick looks like he's about where he was last year, so that's probably an up arrow for him from where he was projected this year. I think he was a little low, especially if you're in PPR leagues. The dude got a ton of volume in the passing game, so like definitely put him where you would have had him last year. I think we're looking at Barkley did take a step forward. He's playing, so I mean like we didn't like a couple of things we saw, but we're hoping he takes another step forward. Uh, bad news for Kenny Galladay, but and Terry McLaurin looks like he's gonna stay put too wherever you had him. I think so. Um,
Terry's still that dude. I think Gibson is still is quite good too. The the numbers might not have been there like McKissick's were in that game, and we're giving McKissick his props, but I do want to throw out there. I think if you have Gibson, you should still feel really good about having him. And honestly, if you could get him at the right value on a trade, I would even do that.
yeah, yeah. I didn't like what I saw, but I don't think that's gonna be. I think that's kind of more of an outlier.
You're talking about the
Um,
work.
Also, fantasy
The
wise, like Washington's defense didn't look as good as I would have wanted them to against the Giants.
They struggled at times. They did. This is what I've been saying though, bro. I mean, it's 2 weeks,
Oh
so I don't
boy.
know. But like, this is that shit about defenses. We all think we know ones that are really good, and we think we know the ones that are really bad, and we are wrong every year. We're wrong.
Well, you're wrong unless you took the Bucks as the first defense off the board, right?
I mean, they went negative week 1, right?
It was like -4, I think, in standard scoring.
Yeah. Well, shout out to all the people that took them in the 9th round.
It's a thing. Josh hates defenses. It cost him a championship. Didn't you start? Didn't you start the Broncos defense the year that they were just like insane?
They were the shit. They were awesome.
They
And they went out there and got me negative points in a championship game, and I lost.
not just negative, dude. Wasn't it like -10? Like it was bad.
I don't know. I've that it was from that day forward. I said I will pay extra attention to these defenses, so I will never let that happen again. And then all I've learned over the years is, oh, there's no predicting it. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen.
That was like the year that the Denver defense was so good they gave Peyton Manning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Right on.
yeah. We'd never
Still
forget.
salty about that years later. I
We'd
never
never
forget.
forget.
Hashtag never forget.
All right. Well, we've got just over 10 minutes before the game start. We touched on a little bit of
Mhm.
everything. We definitely had some feedback here. Definitely appreciate that. Ned, Rob, Ricky, Bars in the Tuck. Appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with us. We do have a couple viewers here still. Are there any last minute lineup questions you guys wanted to get out there? Because we're about to shut her down, I think, get to some football, some family stuff.
Yeah, good old family stuff going on today. I'm gonna get to watch some of these 1 o'clock games, but then that's gonna be it.
Oh, here we go. Gangsta Boy says, "Hey guys, need 2 for flex out of Christian Kirk, Devonta Smith, Trey Sermon, Gabe Davis, Van Jefferson, and Marquez Callaway."
Um, Devonta Smith, yes, and then, oof, these other ones get interesting. Trey Sermon is a no for me, just because you can't bank on any sort of work for him. I have Trey Sermon in some leagues. Trust me, I'm hoping to see him get some work today and look good. I do believe him as a player, but I cannot put him in my lineup today.
Gabe Davis with the volume that Sanders had,
Sanders
probably
got
out.
Yeah, it's just the thing with Davis is he's always got that opportunity to get a couple big ones, a couple big catches, and then that makes your days. But you could say the same about Van Jefferson. That's it's another volume issue with him. He had 3 targets in week 1, caught 1 for a bomb, but he had 3 targets.
Mike Evans, Cam.
Mike Evans, I can't sit Mike Evans for AB just yet. I got to play Mike Evans.
I'm
So
thinking
Devonta
Devonta
Smith,
Smith.
and what's your other one?
Devonta Smith, I like. I mean, he had the
Yeah.
he had the game last week already, and the Niners DBs are terrible. Like Verrett's out, so like Ambry Thomas is going to be a starter for them, and he's just not ready. I think he could be decent long term, but like, yeah, Niners corners are in trouble right now. So yeah, Devonta Smith. I mean, honestly, so the other three we have are Kirk, Jefferson, and Callaway. So we're really looking at like who's going to hit the home run. I have said
Well,
that I think
Is Kirk just out for you?
no.
Yeah.
No, I think that you're looking at it and you're thinking like they're pretty close for me in general. I mean like there's the Kirk tendencies, right? But I think that they also have AJ Green and Rondale Moore, so I'm a little less confident in that.
Same.
Probably give Callaway the flyer. I mean, the thing is like it could be big. Winston had a low volume last week, but he did throw the ball down the field. So like I'm probably going Devonta Smith, Marquez Callaway.
Okay, I like the call. I mean, we've talked about Marquez Callaway a lot over the last couple of weeks. That week one certainly makes you nervous because he was uninvolved. But if you look at all the pass catchers, the wide receivers for that team, they were all pretty much uninvolved because of like what you said, Dub, the lack of targets that went around for that entire team. He is the wide receiver one for that team, and I would expect him to have somewhat of a bounce back because all these wide receivers are so volatile in those options outside of like Devonta Smith, I think has already established a role. I would either go. You know what? I like the ballsy call. Let's go Marquez Callaway. Let's hit the home run with him today.
Let's do it because I'm thinking Jameis Winston could have some more volume throwing the ball too, and that's just more opportunity. We did see some nice things in the preseason. I mean, I stand by the fact that Kirk comes in waves, right? But like that's just a really ugly thing to invest in, and there's been a lot that's changed on that roster this year too. So that scares me a little bit. I love that all those guys are on your radar though. Like Van Jefferson, I said on Tuesday I think is gonna have a role, and I think that Stafford found a way to hit lesser receivers. In roles like that. So I mean, I love that all these guys are on your radar for different reasons. And I wouldn't hate starting Van Jefferson in a different circumstance. But when you have all these guys as options, like Smith and Callaway.
Yeah, all those guys are either. Some of those guys are going to have some nice games today, and then a couple of them are probably going to just totally disappear for you. But they are all interesting names. I would be more likely to play Gabe Davis over Van Jefferson personally, but they are kind of one and the same in what their work and their volume is and their involvement. I like it, dude. I like the Marquez Callaway call. Oh, that feels nervous, but I would do it.
I mean, I know that they had was it Deontay? They had somebody else that had a game week one. It wasn't Callaway.
Deontay Harris.
But
it was just 2 catches though. He just happened to catch a big touchdown.
Gotcha. So
they threw. I mean, Winston, just like what he did in that preseason game that we talked about, where he threw a couple deep ones to Callaway, and Callaway made fantastic catches on both of those. He did that again on one in this past game. He got the ball and it was already a predetermined read for him. He immediately threw a deep one to Callaway. It just didn't connect. But just seeing that alone, I was like, okay, at least he still got that in his mind that he's willing to do that. CEH or T. Higgins in your flex. I'm playing T. Higgins personally, Dub.
I was leaning T. Higgins too. I was actually wondering if it's PPR or not, and part of that is because I think if it were PPR, I might be more inclined to start Clyde for the floor. I think Clyde has a higher floor, but I love Higgins. I think in general, if we're not considering outside factors, T. Higgins is my guy.
Yeah, you happen to be talking to guys that are a couple big T. Higgins fans and not the biggest Clyde fans. I do agree. Clyde does give you a floor because he is the starting running back for the Chiefs. Of course, he could get one in the end zone, but even if he doesn't, he does offer you some floor. Of course, with any receiver, they all can have weeks where they just disappear. But for the higher upside, I'm definitely playing T. Higgins.
For sure. I mean, he was one of the younger receivers coming out of the draft last year and had a really nice rookie year, which I didn't expect. I thought he was going to take a little more time. I mean, I have like pretty high expectations for T. Higgins this year.
Me too. And the Bears matchup does not scare me.
Nice. We got some last minute roster questions. I'm digging it. Appreciate the comments though, guys. Gangsta Boy, Cameron, and Clamped. Appreciate that. This is exactly, I'm like really pumped about it. This is exactly what we want to do. We want to give some feedback. We want to answer some questions, bounce some ideas off you guys. So like, really appreciate all the feedback today.
Now, when T. Higgins goes for 0 catches and CEH goes out there and gets 100 yards and a touchdown, look, don't come back at me getting all pissed off. All right, well, I can't help it. All I can do is give the right plays. These guys got to go out there and perform. Okay.
Listen. We're not out there on the field. Definitely come back. Yeah. But like, come back to tell us like, hey, you kind of fucked me.
Yeah, come back like, hey, you fucked me, but I'm still here. All right, what's up? What's up for this week?
Yeah, let's build on this. We can work through it together.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's get out of here. We got games in 3 minutes.
We got games in 3 minutes. We got some rosters that we got to probably update a little bit ourselves, but hopefully we gave you some feedback, gave you some updates, some roster decisions. I'm hoping all these work out for you guys. I mean, you gave us some tough ones this week, I think. Like, there's definitely every single one of them were something that I had to like stop and think about for a second. So definitely appreciate that. I hope all these guys blow up for you, except for Cam. I hope I hope you have a rough week this week. I'm playing against you, so we'll see.
Thanks, bro.
Listen, we're gonna have Rojo out there, little Chase Edmonds just to make you salty.
Hey, James Conner's out there too, boy.
We'll see how it all plays out, but man, I'm pumped. Appreciate all the feedback. It's week 2. Hopefully, all of our lineups produce, and we end up with some wins.
For sure.
All right, later.